Life is interesting, isn't it? It can throw you into oblivion in a second and snap the string you're clinging onto in a heartbeat. It can cripple you and destroy your whole being without the faintest of warnings. It can demolish you and break your spirit until the end of time, and yet we still depend on it for existence. We depend on it to release us from the tomb it throws us in, lift us from the abyss we fall into after we take the wrong turn chasing our goals, and grant us salvation in the last possible moments. We need life's ups and downs to balance us and form us as individuals. This roller coaster, as it is often called, helps develop the soul and makes emotion valuable to us, at least until the end comes and sweeps us off of this infinite, uncertain platform of being. And trust me, when it comes, when death comes, and you feel his sharp, bony, stone-cold fingers grasp every fiber of your being, there's no turning back. Avoiding the Reaper's wrath is to no avail, and though there are several ways to do it, the end result is the same. Eventually, you'll get tired. You will succumb to him at your weakest. You can't play the game and ride the roller coaster forever if you have no money. Life is Death's game, and he is the final arbiter. When the time of reckoning is upon you, stand your ground and remain truthful to yourself till the very last moment, for one lie can mean eternal damnation. The worst kind of damnation actually is not the one that is inflicted from the outside, but instead it comes from your very own heart and soul. It can lock you up so deep you'll beg for death's calm caress, but you won't ever get it. I, for instance, am one of the few that did not have a mentor to guide me and show me the path to salvation. And now, I lay here, broken and torn, with no way to break these shackles of the mind. I don't know how to put this into words accurately, but I'll certainly try my best. I might as well serve as a warning to those who will attempt to stray from the path of truthful judgment. Approach me, and you shall see the world through my eyes. You shall know why I'm here, and you shall witness the story of the Hollow. My tale begins with the very first memory I have of the time when freedom reigned my mind and the sense of wonder dwelled within my very essence. I was a child, an innocent mind, something rare and special in this cruel, unforgiving land of corruption and hate. Oh, how dearly I remember the times in which I could feel joy. It's nostalgic to me now, and I sometimes think that it was like yesterday. But I just know it's so far away now. Can't ever go back. The first thing that comes to mind is my father. How he used to read me bedtime stories and tuck me in before I went to sleep. It's so distant. I barely remember his face. What I do remember, however, is what I felt when he turned into someone I cannot call father. I don't know what happened to the caring, loving guardian I once knew. He turned into a monster. A horrible, destructive monster. The night he snapped began my journey. A journey that turned into this. I was laying in bed at the time and I heard my mother crying in pain. I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to do. Then I heard him. My mother's cries intensified as my father approached her once again.
Please, Richard, stop. I didn't mean to. I'll make it up to you, I swear.
Shut up! You fucking whore!
I approached the door fearfully, looking through the small opening.
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
I watched him beat my mother senselessly and without any sort of empathy.
You do that one more time, and you're dead! You and that fucking kid.
Yes, Richard?
I remember being sick to my stomach as I watched him go on and on. He eventually stopped, and for a brief moment our eyes locked. The fear I felt when he looked at me caused me to instantly jump to my bed and pretend I'm asleep. Richard soon entered my room, bloody and demented.
Now hush, little baby. Don't say a word. Daddy's gonna buy you a mockingbird. And if that mockingbird don't sing, Daddy's gonna buy you a diamond ring.
The air was cold and full of tension. I could just feel his gaze burning into me. Everything was still now. It was only a few minutes, but God, it felt like an eternity. The silence was eventually broken by the weak sounds of my mother getting up from the floor. Richard finally was walking out of my room, but not before looking back one last time. Her eyes met, and he grinned at me with a twisted look on his face.
Shh. It's all a dream. It'll soon be over.
He shut the door behind him, and I began to sob. It was the first time I couldn't stop. I fell asleep after hours upon hours of silently crying. It was too much to bear in one night. The next morning, I woke up with the worst headache of my life. I was making my way to the kitchen for a glass of water, disregarding the events of the previous night as just another nightmare. As I slowly entered the room, I could see my mother washing the dishes. She was whimpering and muttering to herself. I approached her cautiously.
Mom?
Yes, sweetie?
What happened?
Don't worry, honey. It's all going to be alright. Your dad is just difficult at times.
That moment, I realized everything I witnessed was real. I stood there for a few minutes, staring blankly at nothing in particular. The numbness of the shock was just now beginning to settle in. I snapped back and turned my sight to my mother, who was now trying her hardest not to burst in tears.
Just go play outside for a while. Okay? Father and I just need to talk.
I nodded and slowly headed towards the door, only to be met by the sight of my dad coming home.
Hey, kiddo.
I said nothing. Couldn't even look at him. I just passed by and exited the house without a single sound. It was really hot outside that day. Couldn't think straight. I made my way to the neighboring pond and sat in the shade of a giant oak tree, its might only surpassed by the sheer beauty it projected. Magical place, that lake. There's just something about it that radiates peace and solace, even on the darkest of days. I let my mind slip and wander aimlessly in the fields of thought as I watched the tiny fish dance through the water like ballerinas in a play. It all seemed to go away when I was there, like nothing ever actually happened. Too bad the sensation of peace didn't last too long. Somehow the time I spent meditating turned my peace into carelessness. That was the first time it happened. I didn't feel sad or angry about my mother. I didn't feel happy or anything at all. It was just there. It all turned into dust right there and then. My memories, my emotions, my humanity, all gone in a span of 24 hours. I noticed it was getting dark, so I headed back. I could hear my parents arguing as I paced closer to the house. I stepped through the door and made my way upstairs. They were both in the kitchen, screaming at each other like there was no tomorrow. Probably didn't even notice I came back, but I really didn't care. Just went to sleep and welcomed a new, hopefully better day. Never really came though. Weeks, months, years went by and it was all the same. Actually, it was worse. It was getting horrendous. I'd never seen someone change so much. Richard began to be increasingly violent, his beatings becoming a ritual by the time I reached middle school. He'd hit me over and over again. Without reason. He said it was because I shouldn't get too comfortable, whatever that's supposed to mean. The relationship between him and my mother didn't really get any better either. It all just went to hell and never came back. She was physically breaking down with each and every little fight they had. I don't know how she kept going for as long as she did. Maternal instinct is a miracle, I guess. God, I'm so lucky I had her. She was the only person that provided me any sort of comfort in the everyday hell I went through. Unfortunately, miracles don't last too long. I eventually reached high school and now her sanity was hanging by a thread. I tried to bother her as least as possible as the years went by. I usually locked myself in my room and didn't move a muscle for hours upon hours. The loneliness was taking over my mind. It did something to me. Somehow I feel like the little cell in the back of my head just took over everything and made it all go away. The numbness disappeared, but the hole it left behind just grew larger and larger by the minute. I felt like one of those Christmas decorations. Just an empty, shiny shell that exists for no particular reason. Strange feeling, but this process happened over months, years even. I can't wrap my head around why I didn't do anything about it. I just let it happen. I let it all happen. I didn't try to fill my void, I just fed into it like some sort of weakling. My high school years were my mother's final. One particularly messy Saturday night left her with a broken jaw and a glass full of blood and tears that she finally spilled. I woke up Sunday around noon with the usual feeling of dread and disgust towards everything, but that day something wasn't quite right. The air stank of hatred, sadness, and guilt. It was overwhelming. I needed some fresh air, so I got up from my bed and headed for the door, but something new on my nightstand caught my eye. It was a small white envelope with a simple red sigil on it. I slowly approached the nightstand and extended my hand to grab the frail piece of paper. I stopped. I knew there was something in that envelope that bared bad news. I stared at it for a couple of minutes, took a deep breath, and grabbed it, ripped off the sigil and took out the little blood-stained yellow sheet, and directed my gaze towards it.
Dear Robert, this is my memoir to you. Don't look for me. I decided to break this never-ending cycle of abuse and destruction. Richard is not the man he used to be. To this day, I regret having made that mistake. I broke your father's heart when I told him I had an affair 10 years ago. He was crushed. Anger drove him insane. That's why he's like this. I'm sorry, baby. It's all my fault. I turned him into what he is today. A horrible, heartless monster. It's all my fault. All mine. This has tormented me for the past few years, and now it's all finally hit a dead end for me. You bear the marks of my mistakes, and your youth was destroyed because of my actions. I cannot live like this any longer. Stay strong. I love you. Mom.
I stared at the letter continuously for the next hour and a half. Couldn't believe it. She finally cracked. About time. The events my mother recanted in her letter didn't affect me at all. It was too late. The damage was done and my life was destroyed. No amount of apology or sympathy could fix this. It all went to hell beyond this point. I lifted my eyes from the paper and went into the garage. I was met by the sight of my mother's bluish corpse hanging from the ceiling. Took a long look at her, and I couldn't help but think, what a fucking bitch. My demeaning thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. This was Richard. Perfect. I turned malicious in an instant. I grabbed the crowbar that was near one of his toolboxes and put it behind my back. Dad, come quick!
The fuck do you want, kid?
He opened the door and immediately fell to his knees as the gruesome sight met his eyes. That's all I needed. One moment of distraction was enough. I swung the crowbar at his head as hard as I could, cracking his skull open. He was dead before he hit the ground. Serves the fucker right. I think I took a little too much pleasure in looking at his broken corpse, but I quickly got over it. I needed to clean this mess. All of it. Richard had a lot of gasoline in his car, so I decided to take advantage of that. Siphoned a decent amount from it and found 2 extra tanks under the seats. Over the next 30 minutes, I coated my now deceased parents and the rest of the house with a thick layer of flammable liquid. The feeling was exhilarating. I couldn't help but sing to my father one last time before I said goodbye. Now, hush, little baby, don't say a word. Daddy's gonna buy you a mockingbird. And if that mockingbird don't sing, Daddy's gonna buy you a diamond ring. The house went up in flames in the blink of an eye, and I just stood there, surrounded by the inferno, staring at the people responsible for all of this. I guess I didn't deserve any better. I got in the car and drove off. Didn't really know where I was going, I just needed to keep moving. I decided to head for Salt Lake City since it was the closest option and I was pretty damn hungry. I needed to replenish my strength and unwind for a little bit since tomorrow was a big day. Eventually found a decent hotel to stay at. I think it was called Royale or something. Can't quite remember. Anyway, I got out of my car and slowly walked into the hotel's lobby. Quite beautiful place, I must say. I stopped for a second to admire the Asian and European mixture of furniture and decorations. It gave off a...
Hi, how can I help you?
My thoughts being interrupted, I turned around and was greeted by a slim, beautiful woman in her 20s. She had long brown hair and the most beautiful, piercing blue eyes I've ever seen. She was smiling at me and I didn't really know how to reply, so I just went with it. I'm sorry, what?
Can I help you with anything, sir?
Yeah, I'd like a room, please.
Right this way, please.
She led me to a rather isolated room at the end of the hallway. 295, I believe.
Here you go. If you need anything, I'll be downstairs. Have a good evening.
Will do. I closed the door and went straight to bed. Couldn't really deal with anything for the rest of the day. I was getting dizzy and that same feeling of dread and fear took over me again. It was unbearable. I had to sleep. Everything hurt. I closed my eyes and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Take them with you.
Huh? Who is that?
Take them away.
This shit isn't funny. Whoever it is, get the fuck out.
You'll see the signs soon enough.
What signs are you...
Police, open up!
Police? What was going on? I darted from my bed and opened the door.
Adam Grant, you are under arrest for the murder of Julia Sanders. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Who the fuck is Adam Grant? Are you crazy? Let me go!
You have the right to remain.
It's not him! Room 298! Quick!
I was let go in an instant, and the cops ran out of my room like there was no tomorrow. I followed them as quickly as I could to the neighboring door. I was confused and about to puke, but I didn't care. I had to know. As I entered room 298, I saw a tall, brown-haired man sitting in the window frame. The glass was shattered and he was bleeding.
Adam, I'm gonna need you to calm down and come with me, okay?
A long pause followed. The man seemed to stare into nothingness until he finally turned his head towards us.
Adam?
Say no more, for the reckoning is at hand. Tomorrow, when the world receives new hope, thou shalt tremble before his word, for he will reap the body and mind in a mere heartbeat. May God save you. It's too late for me.
As his last words escaped his lips, the strange man flung himself out of the window of the third hotel floor. He dropped like a rock and shattered someone's car as he hit the ground. I fell to my knees and slowly drifted away into unconsciousness yet again.
Take them with you.
Take who? And who the fuck are you?
Soon enough, blind one. You will open your eyes.
Open my eyes? What kind of wacko are you?
Remember to look beyond the walls.
Beyond the walls. Came around back and forth for a few times before finally being woken up by the constant beeping of the machines to my right. Where was I? My eyelids were so heavy that I barely managed to lift them. I looked at my surroundings. It was dark and my vision was blurry, but I managed to figure out I was in a hospital room. What in the name of hell was I doing here? The small adrenaline rush I got from not knowing what happened got me out of the haziness relatively quickly, and I soon regained all of my senses. I could only hear a faint whisper coming from the other side of the room, on top of the beeping.
Blessed be, Heavenly Father, may thou infinite love and knowledge guide me through my passing in our domain. May thou glorious word bless and forgive me, for I have sinned and succumbed to my own greed. Please, Father, forgive me and lift this burden from my shoulders once and for all. Amen.
The room fell dead silent, and only then I realized I was in the terminally ill department. The machine wasn't mine. It was his. The only thing I could hear now was the soft murmur of the ones breathing heavily around me and clinging onto their lives. Then it hit me. Why I was there. Why it all happened like it did. It all made sense now. The symbols were everywhere. With my mother's dire situation also came the rebuke of peace, which was slowly taken over by war. My father bore his marks till the very end. With war settling down, confusion came in, which led me to the next sign. Adam. He represented famine, the hunger for peace that was never satisfied. His death only showed the decline of humankind into madness, and illness for that matter. The dying people in this room, all frail and sensitive, opened my eyes to the decaying state of pestilence, waiting for the moment when they'll be led to death. The signs spoke to me. Their relentless screams echoed through my head louder and louder with every passing moment. I knew what I had to do to end this. All of it. I slowly lifted myself from the frail, unstable hospital bed and tried my best not to make a sound as I got off of it. I checked my surroundings once more to make sure nobody was watching. No one in sight. Perfect. I made my way out of the large room into a narrow hallway to my left. It was dark and freezing, but I could still make out the writing on each door. Room 209. Dr. Hayes' office. I didn't pay too much attention, though. The voices in my head wouldn't let me. I walked down this hallway for a good 5 minutes until I finally reached an opening, which led me to a wide concrete staircase. At this point, my feet were numb from the cold, and my head was pounding louder than ever, so I had to cling to the banister in order to make it anywhere. I inched my way down the stairs, and I could see a dim light in the distance. I eventually dragged myself close enough to see what it was. Security office. Strange and not to my liking. As I got closer, I realized the guard on duty was taking a little nap. Big mistake. I descended the final row of stairs and positioned myself just under the counter so I couldn't be seen, and crept into the room. Just like I thought. Fucking idiot was sleeping. I do wonder sometimes how in the name of hell they trust these people with guns. As I moved ever closer to him, I scanned the room for anything I could use. It took me a while, but I spotted the faint glimmer of the knife stuck in the loaf of bread on his desk. I got up, grabbed it, and jammed it into his skull, twisting the blade in the process. He didn't feel a thing. I snapped out of my trance-like state and moved on. My blood was boiling inside of my veins at this point. I had to go. I took his pistol and keyring and bolted out. The building was incredibly dark. Must have been a power outage or something. Still didn't explain the lack of people. I didn't give it too much thought, though. As I made my way through the darkness, I began to hear the voice of a man echoing through the entire place. After about 10 minutes of wandering aimlessly, I somehow managed to find the source of the sound, along with the people that were missing. They were all at a presentation of some sort in the dining hall. Apparently, it was the 31st of December, and a small show was put on for the staff. A little bit too convenient for my taste, but I'll take it. I took a long, hard look around and spotted what I was after. The boiler room. I sprinted towards it like there was no tomorrow and unlocked the door with ease. Plain luck, I guess. The low humming of the generators and the snapping of the furnace was music to my ears. I wasted no time and began gathering the gas canisters around the furnace. The voices yelled louder than ever before. I had to finish this. With one quick movement, I jammed the door open and revealed the burning flames. I lifted the heaviest gas canister I could find and threw it inside. There was only a matter of seconds before it could all finally stop. I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. The inferno was monstrous. The hospital burned to the ground in a matter of minutes. No one made it out alive. Not a single soul in the whole building. It was a tragedy. An act of destruction. But I did what I was meant to do. Or so do I like to think, to fill this void inside of me. This black hole, hungering for something that I cannot offer. Its call getting louder each day that goes by. Many days have passed since then. I gave into something that was completely under my control. I could have moved on. Could have just ignored it all. But I didn't. For a brief moment, on that cold December night, I became death. And now every waking moment I have, I pay for my mistakes. I'm shackled here forever, and the only way I can find some release is by telling the same story over and over again. Now that I look back on it, I don't even know why I did it. Maybe it was just instinct. Maybe it was destiny. Maybe I had something to prove. Or maybe I'm simply a hollow shell, spinning aimlessly in the same circle, without reason or purpose. Fear not the man with hatred in his heart, but the one who has nothing there, for the hateful shall stop when he sees himself within you. The empty know not of such things. They are weapons, and they don't even know it.